So today I'm with Oli Christie, who is an amazing guy, actually, and he's got an epic story to tell. And normally we start with, what did you do before your big career change? And I thought we'd shake it up a little bit today. And I'm going to put Oli on the spot a little bit and ask you to summarize in one word, if possible, your career change journey to date.
I think it's schizophrenic, to be honest. It's just been a bit. I've changed careers like quite dramatically 4 times, I think, maybe 4 or 5 times. I wanted to get into advertising as a copywriter when I sort of left university, but I just couldn't do it. It was an impossible Everest to get into. So I got in as an account handler, but I just hated it. It just wasn't me. But I spent all my time in the creative department trying to spend time with the creatives, and I realized that these were just human beings. They were just normal people who could just had ideas, but the ideas weren't so rocket sciencey. I was thinking I couldn't do this, and I got a very lucky break via somebody I met who said there was a junior copywriter role available at this agency, and I had a weekend to put together a portfolio. I didn't even have a portfolio. I bought a pad of paper and a Sharpie, and I just did this pretty average portfolio, but it got me my first job in advertising, which was just incredible. And it was probably the best year in a way of my career because it was so exciting. I was working for Coke and Carlsberg and Kit Kat, Hula Hoops, massive, massive global brands. And after 6 months, my boss left, and I was the only copywriter working on all these huge brands. So that was really cool. This was
No pressure.
no pressure. No, I know. And then the internet started to kick off, and we were starting to do some pictures for .coms and all that sort of stuff, and the .com boom. And a friend of mine said, we've got this role, as the creative person in the studio. And I thought, well, I know nothing about the internet really. I didn't even know the difference between a website address and an email address. Like you could see them like going, oh my God, what have we just hired? But I just took the punt because I thought that this internet thing seemed quite big. And I left this job I absolutely loved. I mean, it was galling to leave it because I was so happy, but I just felt like a risk worth taking. So I made the step to do that, and we went through the whole boom and bust of the .com. And then eventually I got married and we had our first child, and I wanted to move from London to the Cotswolds. So I left the job I also loved there to go to a tiny little agency in Swindon. And then after 4 or 5 years there, the iPhone came out, and I was thinking, God, this is amazing. And people were making really good money out of games, which I was doing in my advertising days. And the tipping point was there was a game I made for the BBC in 2001 where you chucked paper into a bin, and there was
Okay.
a fan either side, and it would blow the paper, and you had to judge the strength of the wind. And when the iPhone came out, an Australian game studio, made a pixel for pixel copy of my game that I charged the BBC 10 grand for, and they were making $500,000 a month out of this game.
Ouch.
And that for me was like, right, I need to start my own company. But I didn't even own an iPhone. I never made a mobile game in my life, but I thought, I just got to do this. It just makes sense to do it. Didn't have any employees. I couldn't program a line of code, but I just thought, just need to take a risk and just do it.
Yeah. And that's how, I mean, I know you as, and actually, I think a lot of people who do know you as the neon play guy.
Yep.
Don't they? I think.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we've had some great success. We had 200 million downloads, and we sold our company in 2016. And, so that's the sort of the top line highlights. But the stress and the ups and downs of that journey to get there, most of the games we've prototyped never even saw the light of day. We probably did 1,000 prototypes over the 14 years I was
Wow.
there,
Wow.
but we probably only had 20 games that were successful in
Yeah.
all that time. So it's a really savagely hard industry.
Yeah, I can quite imagine. So how long did you run Neon Play for?
14 years.
14 years. That's a fairly significant amount of time, isn't it?
That's why I got
And
grey hair.
I thought it was just very blonde. We'll go
No,
with blonde.
it's
So,
grey.
so what made you transition from Neon Play to what you're doing now?
I think lockdown was the start of it, if I'm honest. When we were running Neon Play pre-COVID, we were in a beautiful studio in the middle of Cirencester. We had 20 odd guys and girls literally in a circle, sort of making games, and it was felt like a really exciting factory, a games factory essentially, where you were.
It came along one day, you kindly showed me around, and it was probably the coolest office in the Cotswolds.
Yeah, it was an amazing place, and we just loved it. And you would
Mm.
literally start off with a brainstorm on a whiteboard, and then you go upstairs and you take it from a sketch to some art with the artist. The programmers do the gameplay, you put in sound, and then you do the marketing and you launch it, and you hope it be a success. And then when lockdown hit, obviously that all just went, and we did everything on Zoom and Slack, and that was all fine. And it worked, although it didn't actually work as well. And we didn't really have any big hits from lockdown onwards. And I think there's a telling reason for that. The market did get incredibly hard, but there was just something missing. That creativity, that spark, that collaboration, the overheard conversations that you might do. And for me, that's a love and passion just went out of it because it didn't become that collaborative thing. I used to love just looking around the studio, all the screens that was going on. You could just walk around the studio to have a chat with different people about stuff, pick up a phone, play the prototype, see what felt right or what didn't feel right. And I just thought, I just wasn't quite feeling it anymore. And then alongside that, I was also thinking, so I'm 53 now, so I was into 50-ish at the time. Am I going to be doing games when I'm 60 or 70 or older? Hopefully, God willing, if I live that long. And I'm not. I wasn't going to be doing it because it's not an old man's game; it's a young man's game. So I was going to think I need to try and find a career that can sustain me into my middle to older age that I still love, I have passion for, that can be AI proof as possible as well, because I think AI is going to
Mm.
kill so many different careers and industries and that I also love. And I needed to be reinvigorated and find that massive passion and motivation I had when I started Neon Play, which was just, you could almost feel it coursing through your veins, the excitement and getting up in the middle of the night, writing notes, whether it's ideas for stuff or whatever it might be. And I wanted to get that back because I'd slightly lost my mojo, if I'm honest. And I hated myself for that. That wasn't me.
Yes, can we touch on that? Because obviously I'm talking to people about their careers all day, every day. And one of the things that I then ended up writing about in my book is this thing where people have had a really good career, they've been really successful and done really well for themselves, etc., gained a reputation. It's very much becomes part of their identity. And they find turning their back on that then feels like, or can feel like you've failed, can feel like you're giving up on something that is precious. And it sounds like you then started to go through this sort of internal turmoil. Can you talk us through what was going on in your head?
I mean, ultimately, you know there's just something quite right. Now, sometimes you need to be super self-aware just to realize that, because you can just be starting to feel a bit flat and demotivated and bored and not looking forward to the morning calls. And you just, but also working from home is hard to motivate yourself because you haven't got everyone around you who's actually working. So it's very, very easy to pick up your phone and start death scrolling through Insta or whatever it might be. Um, but I think also, like food is a sell by date. I think you also have a sell by date in your job, and you just feel it that you just don't have that massive motivation, that excitement, and that's totally natural. I don't think there's anything to be ashamed about or sorry about. It's just natural. And sometimes, I mean, 14 years in any job is too long, quite frankly. Really, I think 10 years is ample. And it's good to change. You suddenly learn a whole bunch of new stuff. You meet new people. You're introduced to different cultures, management styles, different people, learnings. I mean, just so much. And we need to keep learning and moving forward. Otherwise, quite honestly, life gets a bit dull. And then we'll
Yeah,
be
it
dead.
totally does. But do you think, I mean, this is a really sliding doors thing probably to ask you, but if COVID hadn't happened and you hadn't been at home isolated and you had still been around the team and, feeling that the energy from the people you were working
Yeah.
with, do you think you'd be where you are today?
That is a really good question. And I have not thought about that. I think it might have extended my stay a bit longer. But I think, and also when business is tough, it's just not as exciting. When you're doing all these prototypes and just mobile game just became phenomenally tricky. And it's just a bit depressing, quite honestly, doing all this great work and the whole team are producing good content, good creative, good games. And then it just goes, "Ugh." So it's like, oh, there's only so much you could be boshed in the face for.
Yeah.
Um, but also it came back to me wanting to future-proof my career. I've done my advertising career, I've done my games career, and I'm doing my coaching career. And so that was really, prepared to take another risk. And it took me a while. It wasn't an overnight, right, I'm going to leave and become a coach. It took a lot of thinking about it, weighing out the pros and cons, trying to work out how I can de-risk stuff, all this sort of stuff, and eventually taking the big, bold move to start. I mean, I videoed myself, I never told him about this, recording my pressing my resignation email to my boss. Oh my God, even just talking about it. And I remember the look on my face and the sort of feeling of once I pressed send and the whoosh sound went, it was like a real sense of bit of relief, bit of fear. But it's taken me a long, long time to draft the letter and press send. But it was a very highly emotive experience doing
I
that.
can imagine. How long did it take you from when you first started to have that feeling that it might be time to move on to actually hitting that send button?
2 years, maybe more.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I think
And
it does take that sometimes.
yeah, I think you're right. And people think that if you're going to make a career change, it needs to be happening quickly and you need to work out very quickly what you're going to do. And some people do, but I think for most people, it is a process because there's so much mental work that has to be done and so many conversations that you need to have and so much, planning that needs to go into making that big career change. Well, you know all about it. You've been there, you've done that. And it's quite nice to hear that, well, hopefully reassuring to anybody listening that it can take a couple of years to put everything in place. What's the most important thing for you that you really wanted to work out before you hit that button?
I suppose a lot of it is the fear of, will you get any clients? Because ultimately, I'd gone from a very nice, comfortable salary, chunky salary to zero. And that is really scary. I mean, that is super, super scary. I did transition from when I resigned, I went to a 3-day week. So I had a sort of 40% pay cut and then I had a 100% pay cut 6 months later. So there was a little bit of a tapering, which was great.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, you're thinking, how am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to pay the mortgage? Um, so I suppose it was just going through the process of working out how can I de-risk it. So I did a coaching course. I just looked at spoke to different coaches, worked out what I could earn from that, and that would go from 900 quid an hour to £1,000 an hour, no, so 90 quid to 1,000 quid an hour sort of thing. Really extremes. I read lots of books, podcasts, YouTube videos, blah blah blah. And then I started to pull together my website, and that starts to give you confidence that you've actually had a sort of not a bad career. I started to pull together a MailChimp database of people, so I sort of worked up to 500 people, speak to people, did a little bit of stuff, coaching quietly on the side sort of thing, just to do some stuff, and actually worked out that people could make considerable change by talking to you. And actually, I'd sort of been coaching vicariously just by speaking to mates anyway over the previous 10 years, just because they would ask you about stuff. And I like talking to people and I want to help people. So, but I think ultimately it's the de-risking. It's because, it's scary changing, whether you're just moving jobs or starting a new business or changing businesses.
Yeah. But it sounds like you were quite strategic about it.
Yes, it wasn't an overnight, I need to become a coach. Here's my resignation letter.
Yeah.
No, no. And,
Yeah.
and I think that, would I like to have done it quicker? Maybe, but I'm not sure I would have been ready psychologically and practically as well.
Yeah. In terms of the finances, like you say, you're going from a chunky salary to zero until you build the business up. How did you make peace with that?
I mean, I had sold my company, so I've got some savings. So there was that comfort blanket. Although when you see your savings going down quite a lot each month, that is a bit disconcerting. But I also knew that I had to be patient. In fact, I've got a thing on my wall here, 2024 to be a year of experiments and learning, be patient. So that's literally on my wall in front of me. And that patient, I knew I wasn't going to suddenly get 20 clients and it was all going to be hunky dory. I knew it was going to be a process, but I'm actually quite at peace with that and I'm quite relaxed about that. But also, one of the reasons I'm actually doing coaching as opposed to employing 20, 30 people is I want to have a life balance.
Yeah.
I've worked bloody hard all through my career, grey hair, a lot of stress, and actually now is almost a bit of me time. So I don't have to get up and have a meeting at 8:15 every morning. If I want to finish work at 4 o'clock, I will. I go to the Isle of Wight on the summer holidays. If I want to paddleboard from 7 until 9 and walk down the beach and go for a swim, I'll do that. And I
Yeah.
don't have to get back from a meeting. And wow, that was really a special moment this summer when I could just do that for the first day of the summer holiday, just not get back to a meeting. It was like, yes, you can do this. This is why you're doing it.
What age do you reckon you were your most ambitious?
Probably when I started Neon Play.
So what age would that have been?
That was 2010, so I was 39.
So if your 39-year-old self could have heard you say what you just said 10, 15 seconds ago about being able to take the time out and go paddleboarding and blah, 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 what do you think the 39-year-old Ollie would have thought of this?
Good lad. Well done, you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think because I had a very clear plan when I started as an employee, I wanted to sell the company. That was very much the plan to do it. You know, I wanted to create something really special. I wanted to do it in Cirencester. I wanted to, build it and they'll come. And, we hired probably 100 people over the 14 years. And we did, and we had some great successes, some amazing times. We won a Queen's Award. We went to Buckingham Palace to meet the Queen. I went to Downing Street and met David Cameron. We had royal visits at Neon Play. We won 20 business awards. I won Entrepreneur of the Year. We had this crazy success for a little company in Cirencester, if you think about it. Um, and I was phenomenal in a way. I was so driven when I started off. I was really, really driven. And that's what I almost started to hate myself because I'd lost that drive and that motivation.
Mm,
And that's when I knew I need to get off the bus and do something different and I've had that now the last 6, 12 months to get that excitement back about starting a new company, even though it's just me, a one-man band, create a brand, do the website, and then ultimately coach people and help them in their lives and businesses.
yeah. I love asking my guests what their definition of success is and
Mm.
whether it's changed from 10, 15, 20 years ago. I mean, I would probably put all my life savings on the fact that your definition has changed very much over the last 20 years or so.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? I mean, when you look back, when you're 20, you want to get a job. You want to leave university and get a job. When you're 30, you want to get married. I mean, and this is, massive chunking into decades and then build your career, build your proper career because you sort of had your foundational career from 20 to 30. And then when you're 40, you're on your peak of your career, I think. And that for me was building Neon Play to sale. And then I think you're 50, in a way, you're optimal. You've sort of built your career, you've had success, and then you need to decide what you want to do. You might have sold, you might be staying there in your company, or you're a senior member of a company. And I don't feel I'm on the slowdown, but I have slowed down. I'm not working 9 to 5 every day. I mean, I'm mostly in this office every day, but I don't have that sort of super stress that I used to have. And I'm sort of feel I've earned my slightly chill time and a
Yeah.
bit more me time and work-life balance. That's why I'm doing it now.
Yeah. So if you had to summarize what your definition of success is now, what would it be?
Work-life balance and helping people.
Yeah. Nice.
I mean, I've actually got a life mission statement to be fulfilled and to have fun.
Yeah.
Okay,
That
and then I
sounds
split,
like a good life mission statement.
yeah, and then I split that into professional and personal. So professionally, it's to be fulfilled by helping my clients make a significant difference to their lives and to enjoy, the work-life balance that I've got. And then personally, I want to have fun with my family and friends and have life experiences and memories. That's a sort of summary of it all. But I think it's a really good exercise to do, actually work out, what is your life mission statement? It's a
Yeah,
really good exercise to think deeply
it
about what it
is.
is.
It is. And I think a lot of people never think about that and just sort of go through the motions of life, get up, go to work, eat, sleep, repeat. And I mean, that was the good thing about COVID is that for the first time, people actually stopped and went, "Oh, hang
Yeah.
on a tick, what am I spending my time doing?" So it was a catalyst, I think, for a lot of people to just take stock of, what have I been doing with my life? Do I want the next 20 years to look the same, or is it time to make a change? So it's quite nice.
Mm.
There's a couple
I,
more. Oh, go on. Yeah.
no, I know. Just on that point, I think there are so many people, and I'm sure you get this, people who are in that sort of midlife crossroads conundrum of their careers, and it's often plus or minus 50 years old, and they're stuck. They're terrified of change. Might be women who are often put their career on hold for kids, and they feel so behind technologically, and because obviously industries move very quickly. And people just really bored because they've done the same job for 10 years but they know they're bored and flat like I was, and they don't know what to do next.
Yeah.
But it's so important, they got another 20 years, from 50 to 70 sort of thing. And let's face it, we're going to have to work longer and retire later. And actually, why shouldn't we? I mean, if you enjoy your job, and that's half the battle, what's wrong with working? I don't feel I'm
Totally.
53, so in 15 years time I should be retiring. I mean, to me that's bollocks. I've just got no intention of retiring. I want to keep on working because I love it.
Yeah.
uh, but you need to find something that you do love and you do enjoy. You can feel motivated and leap out of bed in the morning.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that might be something totally different in 10 years' time for you and me.
Yeah, I
We've got to
mean,
be open to the fact that it could change.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping there'll be an AI version of me, so take out the lines and then the grey hair. I mean, that I think for coaches that is a likelihood that will happen actually.
Mm. Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure the next 10 years. I think there's going to be, my daughter's 13 and I don't even ask her what she wants to do for a living when she's older because I think in 5 years' time, the landscape is going to be so different that there'll be jobs that we haven't even, we wouldn't even be able to dream up right now. So it's kind of futile. I think the more important thing is to look at what do you really love doing? Like what really piques your interest? What do you do if you've got a rainy afternoon and no screens? What's your go-to? So stuff like that, I think, is really quite cool to do with kids. What I was going to talk to you about is when you decided to make a career change, I'm curious to know what the people around you thought, what their response was, and how that influenced you.
Good question. And in fact, what I did twice, I when I started Neon Play and when I quit Neon Play, is I did a presentation to my parents and my in-laws when I started Neon Play, and to my wife as well, because it was a really good. It was like a bit like a Dragon's Den thing in a way. First of all, it was a very good process to go through because otherwise you would just if you come up with an idea, a company idea, you often just do it and you don't sort of think about it. And well, you do, but you don't sort of go through the process of doing a sort of pitch deck almost. And that was a really good way because when I started Neon Play, the iPhone was tiny. It was nothing like it is today. It was completely unknown. I'd never made a mobile game in my life before. I put 40 grand of my life savings into it. It was a complete risk, but it was really good for them to understand the opportunity, why I wanted to make a change, why I think it was a risk worth taking. And ditto, when I wanted to leave Neon Play to start my coaching, I did a presentation to my parents and my wife, and and at the end they went, "Yep, I totally see why you want to do this. I think you should do it." So it was
Did you
good to
do
get
the
that buy-in.
presentation because you felt like you were almost looking for permission?
Not permission, but I wanted them to get why I was doing it
Okay.
and to sort of almost demystify it and for them not to be scared about why I am doing it.
So it was you were looking for understanding.
I mean, maybe deep psychologically, you could say there was a little bit of permission getting there, but I was going to do it anyway. But I thought it was good to get them on board why I'm going to do it.
I mean, if they'd all pulled their hair out and screamed, no,
I
what,
mean,
were you
yeah,
prepared for that?
um, I think I had the tools in place to be a good coach. I think the starting Neon Play was a lot riskier because I was leaving a pretty good job in advertising, which I loved, to go into an industry which I knew nothing about, didn't never made a mobile game in my life before, and that was hugely risky, I would say.
What could possibly go wrong?
Well, lots did go wrong. But then our first game, 2 months later, was a game called Flick Football, and it went above Angry Birds in the charts. It was nuts. So we had a really really exciting start.
Yeah, amazing.
But you've got to take risks, and if you don't in life, quite honestly, life's a bit boring.
Yeah,
And I didn't think I was a risk taker, but actually, even just thinking about today's chat, I realized I have taken a lot of quite big risks in my life, but it gives you energy,
yeah.
quite honestly.
So going back to your presentation that you made, what was the response? Clearly, they didn't pull their hair out and run for the hills.
No, they literally said, I can see why you want to do that, and I can see what preparation you've done to do it, what the opportunity is, and I think you've got the skills to be able to do it. And so they went, yeah, go for it. I
That
would have gone
must
for,
have
I would have
been,
gone for anyway. But it's,
yeah, because I remember you very kindly did a talk for the Growth Hub, which is the place I used to run in my last life. And you very kindly came and did a presentation. And one thing that I really remember very clearly from your presentation is that you said early on in your career, somebody told you that you can't do something, and that gave you the fire in your belly to prove them wrong. And I wonder how that would have played out now. Was that the younger Ollie that was like, okay, well, say I can't do it, and that will just really fire me on to prove you wrong? Or do you still have a bit of that in you?
what's a chippiness?
Just
No,
to,
I mean,
the
yeah,
drive to, I don't know. I
yeah.
think it's quite fun to prove people wrong sometimes, isn't it?
No, it is. And I know when I started Neon Play, there were two guys from a previous company who I was going to do it with, and they bailed out for various reasons. And that did provide a really good driver actually for those first 2 years to prove them wrong. What I'm doing now, no, I mean that's purely for me. It's for me, future-proofing my career and not have staff, if I'm honest. I've loved working with so many brilliant people over my career, but I sort of slightly reached that point when staff became more of a challenge than a joy, and it
Yeah.
was now just time to just have no employees. That's been really refreshing and liberating as well.
Yeah. One thing that I find, and I don't like stereotyping, but it's a trend that I've seen amongst men that I've worked with, is that especially the ones that have been very successful in inverted commas, that their work becomes very much part of their identity. And they gain a certain status and respect from their peers in their industry and so on. And I can see that going from a position like that to suddenly not being the boss and not being the MD and not being the whatever it might be, that can affect your self-confidence, your self-belief, etc., etc. And I'm just wondering whether you'd be happy to talk about how it affected you, if at all.
It's a really good point, and I think a lot of people's careers do define them massively. And I was, Mr. Neon Player, whatever you want to call it, because I'd started the company, I was the face of the company, rightly or wrongly. But I don't know, honestly, it didn't really worry me that, but as in a way, I now want to become known as a coach that people would come to if they've got any challenges in their lives or businesses, and that is now, that's now happening. Um, I don't know if I can name it. I saw a celebrity who's on my mailing list the other day on Sunday, 2 days ago, and he went, "Oh, it's the guru." As I saw him, and so that's just in 6 months. He's been reading my newsletters, and he's sort of getting the tidbits from that. So even that, so my change within 6 months from being a neon play guy to being a coaching guy is really,
Being the
really nice.
guru.
Yeah. Not that I am a guru, by the way,
I
but
think you should just
he said it.
rename yourself to just the guru.
I'm not the guru, but anyway, it was very sweet of him to say it.
Yeah, that's nice. So it's good that people have been able to make that switch, because it does take people a little while to go, hey, okay, you're not doing that anymore. You're now doing this, and to make that mental switch.
But I think a lot of it is that we worry what other people think of us, but really people don't really care about you.
No, they're not thinking about you at all.
We've all got our own lives to worry about. We're thinking about other people as much as you think people think about you. So
Yeah.
ultimately, it's just your own. It's more up there than anything else.
I mean, you strike me as somebody who's really very self-aware, somebody that does take time out to reflect on things. So I'm interested to know whether you're aware of anything that you've learned about yourself over the last couple of years.
Blimey, good question. What have I learned about myself? I'm quite durable. I mean, not just. I mean, through the neon play journey, I learned a lot about myself. I really did, and we were challenged in immeasurable ways through staff, good and bad. The bad stuff really challenges you through business partners letting you down. We nearly went bust twice. I mean, on the first day of starting the company, I got an 18-page legal letter from my previous employer,
Wow, that's a great way
threatening.
to start.
Yeah, that was a real okay, cool.
Mm.
I was quite flattered actually that a PLC was suing me. So I
What
think
does that mean, being durable?
it means that you can get through the SH1T when you've got to. You need to just grit through things sometimes. And as my business partner actually said to me when I got this 18-page legal letter, I'll never forget it. It's like it's a day one. He said things are never as good as they seem, and things are never as bad as they seem.
Mm.
And it's really, really true that. And even when we had number ones in America, and we were the Apple's 10 billionth app download, and we won all these awards. It's really cool, and we said definitely celebrated that. And you've got to enjoy the highs, but you've got to ride the lows. And I always think of it like a mogul field skiing. You've got to absorb the moguls with your knees, but then when you get to the lovely big wide red run, sun shining, you've got to just really enjoy that. And tomorrow's another day. You just got to keep moving. And someone said, if you're stuck in hell, you got to just keep moving to get out of hell.
Yeah. Where does that resilience come from, do you think?
I don't know, honestly. I do not know. It's just in me, and I just you just sometimes have to be really, really determined.
Yeah.
And I do worry about the younger generation who just pull the mental health card when something's going wrong. And I'm not undermining mental health. I know a lot of people with serious medical challenges, but sometimes we do need to grit through things in life, like it or not, because life's not all a bed of roses. It's really damn tough,
Yeah.
life and work. And when we're all going to have endless challenges, and we need to have that durability. Otherwise, the world's just not going to operate in 20, 30 years' time when
Yeah.
all these people are running companies.
Yeah.
It's really, really tough. And I think people in their 20s need to realize this, that they can't just, you know, go, I can't cope. You're going to have to cope sometimes.
Yeah. How do you instill that in your kids? Because obviously you've got three children. How do you instill that? Because I see with my generation that we want our kids to be safe, we want them to be happy, obviously. And I think sometimes we take that too far, that, if things don't go their way, we step in and, complain to the school or the teacher or whatever, whoever's in charge. Um, and I don't know if that's healthy because I think, like you just said, I think we all have to experience setbacks and we have to experience things not going our way because that's how you build a backbone and that's how you become this resilient person. But I'm interested to know what you think and whether it's something that you consciously instill in your kids or not.
I know that when my kids have a tough time, whether it's with boyfriends or school, whatever it might be, I I'm there to support them, but so in a way, and this does not mean being a cruel dad, I'm a little bit pleased that they're going through a tough time because I know it'll toughen them up for the future.
Yeah,
Because it's not all perfect, and
yeah,
we have a very privileged lifestyle, and the kids are generally happy, but they are going to have tough times. So I don't mind it too much. My son has had long COVID for a year. He was off school for a whole year, age
oh
12,
really?
age 12, 13 sort of thing.
Oh
That
gosh.
was really gritty.
Yeah.
And he's come through the other side. He's not totally out of it, but that will have toughened him up. I
Mm,
mean, that was really, really tough for all of us.
mm,
Um, my daughter runs her own jewelry company, Bella Christie Jewelry, and so far that's all been pretty much going up. And I'm a bit worried that she hasn't had that sort of the really challenging time, which will come. She's had
yeah,
people doing copycats of her jewelry, and I said this is going to happen when you have success. People will copy your
yeah,
your pieces.
yeah.
So in a way, that's been a little bit of a setback for her. So I just say to her, you're going to have ups and downs. You've got to get through this. Um, so yeah, it's tough.
It is tough. Somebody once described it really beautifully. I want to say it was Stephen Biddulph or somebody like that. And he said, you want your kids to have a really strong backbone and then be soft, the rest of it, then be soft. Because
Mm,
you want the mix, don't you? Yes, you don't want to be a tough nut, but you need to be able to just, if adversity happens, you need to be able to carry on. And
yeah.
but it's really tricky, I think, as parents. We've got a really tricky role on our hands, haven't we?
Yeah, but I don't. I mean, they say you learn nothing from success; you only learn from failure, and that is so true. And
Mm.
all the things I've learned through the Neon Play journey, a lot of highs and a lot of lows, is that it was the lows that you learn more about yourself and about life and about people and about business.
Yeah. And
I
that's
wish
what
we, I
makes
wish
you a
we could.
good coach, I'm sure, because you can empathize with people when
Yeah,
things aren't going terribly well, because you can speak from experience. I think if you were a coach where your life has just been a bed of roses, I'm not sure if you can really build that same level of rapport.
yeah. No, I think sometimes when things go wrong in my life or business, people go, you seem really calm about stuff.
Mm.
I mean, yeah, I'm just trying to be rational because
Hmm.
panicking is not going to help. And if you can just that idea that things aren't as good as they seem or as bad as they seem, you need to try and just find that middle ground. But yes, it's
Yeah.
really, really challenging, but you will get through it.
Yeah.
And yes, it's really, really great, but it will turn rubbish again at some stage soon. That's just how it works.
I really appreciate the time that you've given me today. I really hope that anybody listening that is inspired by your story will take some action. It doesn't have to be a leap straight away, but take some action towards where you want to be.
Same, thanks, Yesim. I think it's so important that if people are in that mid career crossroads, they do something about it. Don't bury your head in the sand. It's not as scary moving. And often when I've made that scary, risky move, I look back and go, I wish I'd done that earlier. And
Yeah.
that's generally what people say.
Thank you.